Hello everyone, I am the Sports Card Noob and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be discussing breaks. Mainly, I guess, my opinions on breaks. Um, are they good for the hobby? Or if you want to get into breaking yourself, is it something that's financially viable or something that you should try and do? And are breaks worth buying into? Not necessarily in that order that we're going to discuss them, but that's just kind of the four main points that I really thought of to talk about when it came down to breaks. For those who don't know what breaking is a pretty simple concept. Most famously now on Whatnot, but you can see it on other platforms like YouTube. I haven't looked, but probably on Twitch or other like live streaming platforms. And basically, uh, you would find somebody who would be opening up a product. So let's just say they're opening up uh, will this show? Say if they're opening up like a box of a score football, right? And you would buy into the break, usually bidding against other people for either teams or players, or in other instances, like if you're talking about like Disney or Marvel, then like maybe characters you would buy into. And if you win the bid, you would get a randomly selected one of those things. And then once everybody's done, the break would go on, and any cards that are opened up of whatever category you won. So let's say like teams in this situation, and you won the Jets, then any Jets cards that gets pulled, you would be sent to you, and you would get it for whatever price it is that you paid for the team. There's also, you could buy into a break. So everything. So say if like somebody's doing like a big opening, right? They're doing an entire case of score football hobby boxes. Then what could happen is that they might have teams for sale, and you just specifically buy the team that you want at whatever their set price is, based off of what they believe the value of the team is and the cards that you can get from that team and the frequency of being able to get it. And so that could also be a way of getting a pretty good deal on not buying all the boxes yourself, but specifically targeting whatever teams you want and then getting those cards and hoping you get something good, comparable, whatever. So that's the generalized breakdown of what breaking is. Let's get into is it worth it, right? Before I talk about my opinion and my biases, I want to give an actual outline for everything else. Um, is it worth buying into? Can be a very difficult question to ask. It really depends on who you're talking to. There are some people who are big advocates for breaking. People who actually break consistently would probably tell you that breaking, yes, is good and you should buy into it because they want the support, they want the whatever. Other people might tell you, no, breaking is not worth it. You probably have better odds just saving up the money over time and buying whatever box you want to get and trying your luck at a product yourself, or realistically just buying singles. Buying singles is hands down the best way to go when it comes down to the making of money inside of this hobby. Which I'm not big into buying singles just because I can't do a lot in person, or I don't do a lot in person. I'm also a big kind of gambler on the side of opening packs. So I tend to open up a lot of product, and that's what this channel is going to revolve around a lot more of, but I digress. Um, I think it can be worth buying into in specific situations. And what I mean is, if you have a lot of self control, if you're not like addicted to gambling and stuff like that, you have a lot of self control, you can go in with the mindset of, I'm only going to spend X amount of money, and that's what I'm going to spend, and that's it. Hands off, whatever I get is whatever I get. Then I think it can be very good, especially if you're not interested in buying a full product, you just want to try to target certain teams, whether by chance or on purpose. Then I think it's a good way to get a little bit of a product, and in the random chance, hopefully getting the team that you want or players that you want, and in the chance in which you can just straight up buy whatever you want, then you can just target that and hope for the luck. And usually speaking, you're spending a lot less money on the product overall uh, than what you would have initially. Like, hobby boxes are between, like, I don't know, like 150 and like $250, right? So you might only spend $40. So you spent $40 and you got 3 teams. I don't know. And that way you didn't have to spend the 150 or the 250. You spent 40, which saved you a good chunk of money than what you would have did buying the box yourself, and you got the chance of getting a really big hit for a lot less money and a higher return on your investment. The problem is that you are significantly cutting your chances of getting that hit than if you were to buy the box yourself, because if you buy the box yourself, then you have access to every single team and the highest chance of getting all the hits, especially in products that are like guaranteed autos or whatever. Then it's like, well, if you buy the product yourself, you're guaranteed all of the autos, whether they're good or bad. Then risking the chance of maybe getting an auto with the team that you picked, or probably not. So I think it can be worth it if you're looking for a fun way to interact with the hobby in which you don't have to spend a lot of money and you don't mind the mystery of the situation in hopes of getting something big. Is it possible to get something big? Absolutely, or people wouldn't do it. I have received some pretty big named cards from breaks. I have also received absolute dog water from breaks. So it's very hit or miss. Um, I guess then the next point I'll go into, is it good for the hobby? And I don't know if I'm like the foremost knowledge to speak on this subject in general, but it is something that I have dealt with a lot over the last like year or two. And so I do have some opinions on the matter. And whether or not it's good or bad for the hobby, I think is very subjective. I will say this: anything that gets more people interested into a hobby is good, right? We want more people into the market, do we not? We want more cards to be sold. We want the prices to be up on the cards that we buy. We want more people to be interested in what's happening. And if the way that people get interested is through breaking and through nothing else, then great. It's just another avenue for people to join the hobby, whether as a buyer or as somebody who sells, who wants to do the breaks themselves. You're opening up an avenue as a person who wants to do the breaking to gain an audience. And you could have a personality type that really fits it with people, and people really like listening to you and wanting to see you, which then could attract people into the hobby who might have been interested beforehand. So I think just for that aspect alone, if you're just talking about bring people into the hobby, that can be a good thing. Other aspects, I mean, financially, is it good? Like as a person who buys and sells or is getting into the buying and selling market, is it something that I find worth my time? And does that decision make it good to the hobby for me personally? Because as somebody who does like to gamble a lot more and stuff like that, I think breaks is a really, really easy and super accessible way of being able to spend money very quickly without realizing. And it could be very detrimental. But again, that's really is the decision of the person who's doing it. If you do not have self control, then don't do it. It's not good and it shouldn't be for you. So, overall, I think it's good for the hobby, but I think it can be very bad for people who don't have any type of self control. At least with things like buying bigger products, they have to come up with that money first. They have to come up with a lot more money for it. So it makes them think a little bit more. In breaking, you're just going. Um, Adrenaline is very high. You're fighting against other people. You like the numbers going up, and and you got the chance of getting this big hit, and you kind of get absorbed in the world. And sometimes you kind of forget that, hey, I can only spend so much, or hey, I shouldn't really be spending anything at all. So for the hobby overall, I think it's very good, but individual people have to keep tact. Let's move on from that. Into is it worth doing it yourself? Because I kind of touched on the subject a very little bit in that last section there. Um, I have talked to a handful of people who break, who are new to it, because it's a lot easier to talk to people who are new into it than those who have been established for a while. Um, it can be very difficult, especially depending on the platform that you're working with for breaking, right? So Whatnot is such a big example that I'm going to use because Whatnot is what people do breaks on. It's just the truth. And the problem with breaking through something like Whatnot is fees. So you might go out, say if I decided I want to start breaking. So my decision is I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy $100 worth of retail product, whatever it might be. $100 of these score football boxes, which would probably get me about 3 for what they have to be after tax. So say I get 3 of those boxes, it costs me just shy of $100, tax being included. Well then, that's great, right? And I come home and I auction them off, and I don't even know off the top of my head how many teams are in the NFL. Say there's like 30 teams. I don't know. I don't know. Say there's 30 teams and you sell each team for $5. That's $150, right? And that sounds really good. You just turned roughly $100 into $150. You gained a $50 profit. And I think a lot of times that's where people stop. And then they get into it. That's where their mind stops. They get the enjoyment of opening the product, seeing all these cool cards, shipping them out to people, and then they get this money. And that's what they think. And then you very quickly realize, well, no, it doesn't work that way. Whatnot has fees. So now you've got to take into consideration, I just bought this box, or I bought this X amount of this product, and to even make back the money on it, you have to figure out how much you'd have to sell each individual team for to make up the $100 that you spent. And then you have to figure out on top of that, how much money do you need to make up for the tax, or for what Whatnot takes out. So say if Whatnot takes 10% of every single transaction, well, then you need to come up with the difference of what that 10% would be or higher on every single sale that you make. So you're getting to what that bottom line number is that you have to make per team a lot easier. And then there's still shipping cost, which thankfully people pay for their shipping costs as they go. But eventually, I think it's how people have it set up. Eventually, they will pay for less and less and less shipping, and they will get a couple of orders for free. But at that point in time, the shipping cost should have stacked up enough in which you shouldn't have to worry about it. In an ideal world, what you charge somebody on Whatnot for shipping should cover the actual shipping cost so that you're not taking that hit. In the also ideal world, you'd love that shipping cost to then also make up for the material cost to send out those cards, which again is something that I feel like people don't think about, is that you also now have to go out and buy all the materials to ship out cards. That could be tape, printer paper, envelopes, bubble mailers, penny sleeves, top loaders, team bags. The list could, I'm sure there's stuff that I'm missing, but that all adds up pretty quickly. And you have to figure out how much money you need to make buying all that material worth it. You know, they say if you go out and you spend $50 on material, then you have to then figure out what would your breakdown be of getting back that money. And you would probably want to add that to each team sale. You could always look at it and say if you bought just enough material for every stream that you do, well, then you add the price of that material into the price of the product you bought. So say you bought $50 worth of material, $100 worth of boxes, and that's $150. Then you could also divide into that then for how much for each teams and whatever else. But there's all this stuff you got to come up with, and then finally you got your payout after that. But that's a lot of work. It's also a lot of money you have to front up top and hoping that you can make sales at that amount, because you can't always do that. As somebody who's starting out, you might end up getting a lot more $1, $2, $3 sales on teams when you realistically need to be at $5 or $6 on those teams to really make back the money. So it can be very stressful. It can be very hard to start out. If you were to start out doing it, you should have a very well thought out plan, and you should have a good stock of money to start, because you're going to have to constantly buy product to sell. I don't know how long it takes for Whatnot to do its payouts. Payouts could be every 2 weeks. Who knows? They could be daily. But say if it takes a while for payouts, then you need to have enough money to be able to do the streams so you can get the growth that you want early. So you want to do streams as often as you can so you can get growth, so that way you can hit those margins a lot better. The most ideal world is you would love to be well above what you need to do. And oftentimes situations, bigger streamers or people who do it are at higher amounts. They might need to sell a team for $8, but they could consistently be selling teams at $20. Well, now that's a $12 profit. And even if material cost isn't taken into consideration there, say each team you need to do like $2 worth of material cost and however amount for eBay's for Whatnot's end. Say it's another $2 for Whatnot's end, and that's like $14. I don't know what my numbers are at. 12 or 8, 2, 10, 12. Say it's like you're at $12 in total, and you still sell $20. That's still an $8 profit, and you do that on every single team. Well, then 8 times how many teams are, like in my example, 30. You get the point. The money stacks, but it takes time to get there. So financially, I think it can be very smart if you are willing to spend the time and have the money saved up front. Also, you can take into consideration that while you're doing this, time is money. You know, if this is not like your full time job, if you work like a full time job and you're just doing it on the side, then that time aspect doesn't matter nearly as much because it's just a hobby and you're doing it for a little extra cash on the side. But if you're doing this full time, you need to understand as well time is money. What is the minimum wage in your state? Are you hitting that minimum wage of what you're able to put back into your own pockets? Which is a very big thing. I'm from New York. My minimum wage is $15.50 an hour. So that means every single hour I spend doing this, I would need to make $15.50 during that hour. And that would be like during like your streaming process. But then at the end of it too, are you making enough money from the breaks to also cover all the time that you're spending packaging all the orders, getting them dropped off, spending time in the post office, spending time getting the materials that you need for it, spending the time buying the products that you need for it. And some of the stuff you can kind of like lump together in which you're like, well, I'm already going out anyway, so I'm not making a special trip to go out. I'm just adding a stop. Then you can kind of cut back a little bit on that. But still, I mean, during the times that you're streaming and the actual time putting the orders together, are you making enough money to cover that up as well, especially if this is going to be like a job to you? Which I don't suggest. I suggest if you want to do it as a hobby. Do it as something on the side like people do with YouTube and selling cards and everything like that. So just do it on the side. This video is going to be a lot longer than I thought. I do apologize. But the Larry Bass thing is my own opinion. I have bought into breaks, like I said, for years. I have spent far too much money that I have not seen nearly as much return on. And I don't want to get into that. But I have received some very good cards. I've received one of ones. I've received low numbered cards of very good players. One of one, I should say. I've gotten some good stuff. I've also been completely gypped and have received nothing good. So I like it. I like breaking for what it is. I think it's a ton of fun, especially when I'm being very responsible and I'm keeping to the minimum, to my very tight margin. I think it'd be very fun because I love the risk, I love the gamble, I love the mystery. And it's such a good feeling when you hit the big card and you only spent like $7 and now you've just hit even like a $40, $50 card. That's a $43. That's $33 to $43, profit off of that. And you can sometimes go up higher and higher and higher. But you also have to remember that the more you put into it, the more debt you're into it. And I mean, the harder it is for you to get something back that's really going to balance it out. And so you are going to be losing money doing it. That's just a matter of fact. The odds are you're going to lose money in doing it. You could get that really, really big hit that's worth $2,000 or $3,000, and you could be up for a while. But if you keep buying into it, odds are you're just going to go down. Remember, the house always wins. And that's not just for casinos. That's in anything that you do. These card companies are always going to win against you. You are going to dump money into it, but the amount of money you put into it will almost never exceed the amount of money you get out of it unless you're like a one and done person. You go in with the hope of hitting X amount of money where you've only spent X amount of money, and once you've gone above that, you're done. Your hands off. You've done what you need to do. Then there's that situation, but anybody who's watching this is not here for that. So overall, I think it's really good. I think it's something that is totally interesting. I think it's a different aspect of the hobby that I have a lot of fun with, but also a lot of frustrations with. And it's something that if you're going to do it, just remember doing it with tact and plan in mind on all fronts. So there you go, guys. That's my opinion and kind of the breakdown of breaks and kind of my opinions on the subject. I'd be curious to see what you guys think about it down in the comments. Um, on like breaking yourself. Like, do you enjoy breaks? Do you not enjoy breaks? Do you think they're good or bad for the hobby? Would you want to do it someday yourself? Or if you're already doing it, what's your experience with that like? And if there's any type of misinformation I put out there on the subject or something that you might want to clarify a little bit, then please also let me know that down below. And it would mean, a ton to me just to hear that and have that type of back and forth with people. Thank you guys so much. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I am on my way to 200 subs. Peace.